On June 27, 1981, a 26-year-old Aurora police officer pulled over a car for a traffic violation. Officer Deborah Sue Kaur had been on the job for exactly 1 year. She had no reason to believe the driver was anything other than what he appeared to be. His name was Joe Michael Irvin. And in the 3 years before that traffic stop, he had stabbed 4 women to death across Denver and Adams County. A woman feeding her children breakfast at home, a grandmother walking to her last day of work, a young mother found a block from his apartment, and a 17-year-old girl 6 months pregnant found in a field. None of those cases had ever been connected. None had ever been solved. When Officer Kaur pulled Joe Irvin over, she had no idea who was in that car. He grabbed her service weapon. He shot her. He killed her. 4 days later, Irvin was dead by suicide in a jail cell. He had been arrested for murdering Officer Kaur. The 4 women he had killed before her, Madeline, Dolores, Gwendolyn, Antoinette, remained unconnected. Their cases remained cold. For 40 years, nobody knew. Then the Denver Police Department developed a capability that didn't exist in 1981. Something that could reach backward through time, build a family tree from a DNA profile, follow the branches to Texas, and dig up a grave. What they confirmed in January of 2022 changed 4 families' lives and launched a new era in Denver's oldest unsolved cases. Welcome back. Today we're going to Denver, Colorado, where a secret serial killer stalked 4 women over 3 years, died before anyone connected the crimes, and was finally identified 4 decades later through the first case that Denver police solved using genetic genealogy. The Denver Integrated Cold Case Project has now solved more than 130 cases. But this one, the Joe Michael Irvin case, is the oldest and the one that proved what their new technology could do. This is the story of 4 women, a killer who died in a cell, and a laboratory that learned to dig up the past. December 7th, 1978, Northeast Denver. Madeline Fury Lividice was 33 years old. She was a wife and a mother to 2 young daughters, Molly and Ariel. She was, by her family's description, an editor at Ranger Rick, the beloved children's nature magazine. A woman who worked with words about nature and animals and wonder for children. That morning, she was at home feeding her girls breakfast. Someone came to the door. Joe Michael Irvin forced his way inside. He stabbed Madeline Fury Lividice to death in her own kitchen. Her daughters were there. Molly Lividice stood at a press conference in Denver 44 years later and said the words that had been waiting all that time. Tragically, we didn't get to grow up with her and to hear her stories and witness the contributions she could have made to the world. This was the first killing anyone would eventually connect to Joe Michael Irvin. In December of 1978, there was no connection to make. There was only a grieving husband, 2 little girls, and an investigation that would never produce a suspect. 20 months passed. Then Irvin struck again. Dolores Barajas was 53 years old. She had come to Denver from El Paso, Texas, to spend the summer with family. She had found work at the cafeteria of the Fairmont Hotel. She was good at that, showing up, working hard, looking after herself. August 10th, 1980, was supposed to be her last day at the hotel. She was walking to work on East 17th Avenue, walking toward the end of the summer and the trip home, when Irvin attacked her and stabbed her to death. Her body was found in the middle of the street. 4 months later, Gwendolyn Harris, 27 years old. Her body was found on a street corner in Denver's Montbello neighborhood on the evening of December 21st, 1980, just days before Christmas. She had been stabbed multiple times. What investigators would later learn, though they couldn't have known it at the time, was that the street corner where Gwendolyn Harris was found was approximately 1 block from the apartment where Joe Michael Irvin was living. Her family described her as a bright, soft-spoken, athletic young woman who was always smiling. Because of the decision of another to take life with no regard, her family said in a statement years later, the 1980 murder of Gwendolyn Harris was devastating and unimaginable to the family. Gwen will forever be in our hearts and always our joy. Then, January 24, 1981, Antoinette Parks, 17 years old. Antoinette was a student at Gateway High School in Aurora. She loved children. She worked at a Denny's. She had plans, big ones. Her brothers George and Carl said she would have opened her own daycare someday. "If you brought your kid over to be watched," said her brother George, "you probably weren't getting them back." On January 24th, she was found in a field near 64th Avenue and Broadway in Adams County, several miles north of downtown Denver, stabbed multiple times. Antoinette Parks was 6 to 7 months pregnant when she was killed. 4 murders, 4 women, 3 years. No one connected them. Each case was investigated separately, Denver police working Madeline's and Dolores's and Gwendolyn's cases. Adams County working Antoinette's. No forensic technology existed in that era to link an unknown DNA profile across multiple scenes. No national database. No way to look at 4 separate stabbings of women across a city and automatically draw a line between them. The cases went cold. Not for lack of effort, but for lack of the tools that would one day make the difference. And then Joe Michael Irvin stopped killing, not because he chose to, but because a police officer stopped him. On June 27, 1981, 5 months after Antoinette Parks' murder, Officer Deborah Sue Core of the Aurora Police Department pulled a car over for a traffic stop. She was 26 years old. She had been on the job for exactly 1 year. She was married to a Denver police officer. The driver was Joe Irvin. When Core moved to arrest him, he grabbed her service weapon and shot her. Officer Deborah Sue Core died. She was the first Aurora police officer ever to be killed in the line of duty. Joe Michael Irvin was arrested. He was taken to the Adams County Detention Center to await trial for her murder. 4 days later, he was dead. He had taken his own life in his cell. He was 30 years old. He was buried in Arlington, Texas, and 4 families in Denver and Adams County, Madeline's daughters, Dolores's relatives, Gwendolyn's family, Antoinette's brothers, continued to wait for answers that had, as far as anyone knew, died with him. In 1998, the FBI launched the Combined DNA Index System, CODIS, a national database allowing law enforcement laboratories to exchange and compare DNA profiles electronically. In 1999, Dr. Gregory LaBerge, director of the Denver Police Crime Laboratory, and Lieutenant John Priest saw what CODIS could mean for Denver's cold cases. They created the Denver Integrated Cold Case Project, a formal partnership between the Denver Police Cold Case Unit, the Denver Police Crime Lab, and the Denver District Attorney's Office. The project has tested DNA in approximately 900 sexual assault cold cases and 240 homicide cold cases in the quarter-century since. It has filed criminal charges in more than 130 cases. It had also been doing something in the background that would make the Irvin cases possible. Starting around 2013, the DPD Crime Lab began making progress on the 4 unconnected murders from 1978 to 1981. They didn't have a suspect, but they began to see something in the DNA evidence, a pattern. Between 2013 and 2018, the lab connected all 4 cases to the same unknown DNA profile. The same person had killed Madeline Fury-Livaudais. The same person had killed Dolores Barajas. The same person had killed Gwendolyn Harris. The same person had killed Antoinette Parks. But who? The profile didn't match anyone in Cody's. The suspect, whoever they were, had never been in a law enforcement DNA database. Then, in 2019, the DPD Crime Laboratory added a new tool to its arsenal. It began conducting investigative genetic genealogy, IG, in-house. This was the same technology that had identified the Golden State Killer in California in 2018. Uploading an unknown crime scene DNA profile to public genealogy databases, building a family tree from distant relatives, and following the branches until you find the suspect. The DPD Crime Lab uploaded the unknown DNA profile to the genealogy databases. And something came back, a positive ancestry link. In Texas. The work that followed was exactly what genetic genealogy requires: meticulous, multi-jurisdictional, slow. In the summer of 2021, DPD Crime Lab personnel and cold case investigators worked alongside Texas officials to conduct familial DNA searches in Texas records. They were looking for living biological relatives of the person who had committed those murders more than 40 years ago. They found one, a close biological relative. Someone whose DNA in the Texas database pointed unmistakably toward a particular family. From there, the work was traditional detective work. Building the tree, ruling out branches, narrowing the list. The name that emerged was Joe Michael Irvin. He had killed Aurora police officer Deborah Sue Core in 1981. He had died by suicide in the Adams County Detention Center 4 days after her murder. He had been buried in Arlington, Texas. He had been dead for 40 years. In late 2021, investigators obtained the approvals they needed. They traveled to Texas. They located Irvin's grave, and they exhumed his remains. DNA samples were extracted from Joe Michael Irvin's body. They were brought back to the Denver Police Crime Laboratory. They were compared to the DNA profiles collected from 4 murder scenes between 1978 and 1981. In January 2022, 40 years after his first victim, Madeline Fury Livodis, was stabbed to death in her kitchen, the results came back confirmed. It was him. All 4 cases. Every one. January 28, 2022, Denver Police Department. Denver Police Commander Matt Clark stood at a podium and laid out the timeline. 4 cases. 1 killer. 3 years of murders. 40 years of waiting. Denver Police Chief Paul Pazin addressed what everyone in the room had to be feeling, that the man could not be put in handcuffs, could not stand trial, could not face a jury. While the perpetrator cannot fully be held accountable for his despicable actions, Pazin said, "We hope that knowing who is responsible can bring some peace to the families." Madeline Fury Livodis's daughter Molly was there. She said what she needed to say about her mother, about growing up without her, about the stories they didn't get to hear. And then she said something about Officer Deborah Sue Core, the young officer whose traffic stop had ended Irvin's killing spree. With her sacrifice, Molly said, she prevented him from killing anyone else, and it's clear he wasn't going to stop on his own. Antoinette Parks's brother George Journey was there too. He thought about his sisters and his mother. All of them gone now, none of them having lived to see this day. "We can finally have peace knowing who did this to my little sister," he said. "I wish my sisters and my mom could all be here to see this. Unfortunately, they didn't live long enough to see this. But I know they're here with us in spirit." The announcement of January 28, 2022 was not the end of the story. It was a demonstration. Denver's integrated cold case project had been built to solve cases like this. Cases where the science had to catch up to the crime, where patience had to outlast failure, where the answer existed in the evidence all along, and needed only the right technology to surface it. The Joe Michael Irvin case showed what genetic genealogy could do when it was built into a cold case unit's institutional framework. The DNA evidence had existed since 1978. The family link existed in Texas. The bridge between them required a tool that didn't exist until decades after the first murder. Once that tool existed, and once the DPD crime lab was doing this work in-house, the answer took less than 3 years from the first ancestry link to the confirmed identification. As of 2024, the Denver Integrated Cold Case Project has filed charges in more than 130 sexual assault and homicide cases. It is currently using genetic genealogy to investigate more than 20 more cases dating back to the 1980s. There are still 772 homicide cold cases open in Denver, dating back to 1970. The lab is still working. Madeline Fury Lividice was 33. She was feeding her daughter's breakfast. Dolores Barajas was 53. She was walking to her last day of work. Gwendolyn Harris was 27. She was found on a street corner a block from where her killer lived. Antoinette Parks was 17. She was 6 months pregnant. She wanted to open a daycare. These are the names. These are the details that matter. Joe Michael Irvin died in a cell in 1981 without answering for any of it. But 40 years later, a laboratory in Denver built a family tree from his DNA, followed it to Texas, opened a grave, and brought his name forward.
Officer Deborah Sue Kaur, the first Orosaur officer killed in the line of duty, stopped him on June 27, 1981. Before he could kill again. She didn't know what she had stopped. Now we do. The Denver Integrated Cold Case Project is still active. If you have information about any unsolved Denver homicide, you can contact the Denver Police Department at 700-2939-2000 or Metro Denver Crime Stoppers at 700-2913-7000-867. Subscribe if you're new here. New episodes every. Leave a comment below. And the names deserve to be remembered. Madeline Fury Livode, Dolores Barajas, Gwendolyn Harris, Antoinette Parks. Denver and Adams County, Colorado, 1978-1981.